how lucky are the Starin? Well, the Starin team are phenomenal anyway. They're, my lovely. I shouldn't stick up for him. Don't vote for Chris Neto.
No, you should not.
But
the gentleman that Iffat was mentioning was our buddy Chris Neto. We'll talk about the awards here at the end, but she is going up against Mr. Neto for the AVNation AV
Chris.
Professional of the
Vote
Year.
For Chris.
You can vote now. You should vote for Iffat. If you don't, I'll find you.
Well, that is if the board agrees. Gentlemen, all those in favor? Good. It's unanimous.
E-Ink and Control Systems, the incredible shrinking AV gear and the role of distributors for AV users. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 649, recorded Friday, January 26th, 2024. Shrinking Innovation. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. We've gotten the biggest stories we can find this week, and with us to talk about it, first and foremost, Iffat Chaudhry from Involve in the UK. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be on.
Also, and you should also check out her podcast called What If, and we'll talk about why you should vote for Iffy at the end of this show. Not saying who to vote for, but you should totally vote for Iffat. Willie Franklin used to be from Otterbein. Now he is an AV expert emeritus. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Tim. Always great to be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And a young man I got to see in Las Vegas. His name is James King, and he works for UNLV. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. It was great seeing you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, first story this week, Midwich acquires The Farm. The Farm, really quickly, is the West Coast manufacturer rep here in the States. That manufacturer rep will merge with Midwich's U.S. division, Starin Marketing, to expand reach and support, quote unquote, to also increase opportunity and better service is just the start, says Farm CEO John Hood. Now we can finally invest to deepen our offerings. Deal also allows the Farm to retain its identity while leveraging Midwich's distribution clout. Your account managers and programmers will still be here, Hood assures us. Plus a global market leader behind us. For Starin, it manifests their vision to build specialized service-focused partnerships. Quote, unquote, we continue to drive forward, says Bobby Schwartz, Starin CEO. Also, Midwich Chief Strategy Officer Thomas Sumner welcomes the Farm's, quote, unquote, highly skilled team. He says for Midwich, it builds on our strategy of focusing on specialism, which is the role of distributors and service providers. Willie, I want to start with you on this. One of the things that I find interesting here is the fact that it's the Farm, right? The Farm is still a manufacturer's rep, but also what made them different and how they differentiated themselves was that those service providers. They provided engineering, they provided on-site support, they provided programming. What is the role of the distributor and the service provider to end users as distributors are getting more and more robust?
Wow. I wasn't expecting that very question. So I may pivot a little bit.
No, that's fine.
First and foremost, it is a challenge to say Midwich, and I slow down so that I enunciate properly. But really, to answer the question, Tim, if you can't build it better, you have to buy it. And that's my way of looking at this story. The notion of being able to bring products to market quickly, of increasing one's market share, that relationship between the distributor, manufacturer, and the end client is just of critical importance. And regardless of how broad of a brand Midwich is and the amount of representation that it has, as I look across their array of brands that they represent, competition tends to drive innovation. And if you can't build it better, then you buy it. It is obvious that the firm is doing something very right, very effectively, very consistently. So by acquiring that piece of infrastructure, you basically broaden your brand. That's how I look at it in very simple terms.
All right. If that a little bit of behind, a little bit of inside baseball. I don't pick the stories until the week of. I already had folks scheduled on. I was very happily. It was a very nice happenstance that you were on this week. Midwich, 100% a UK-based brand. I want you to give us a little bit of insight and contrast distribution in the UK and the EU versus the US, where my understanding here is that 99.9% of dealers in the EU get their products through distribution, whereas in the US, I'm going to guess off the top of my head, it's 50-50, maybe 60-40. What does this move by Midwich mean in that light, where they're now expanding into even more services to provide to not just the dealers, but also potentially to end users?
Starting at a very high level, obviously Midwich is a global entity now.
Yep.
You know, they have a significant presence now, growing presence in Australia. It's natural, I think, coming from the UK, it's an absolutely natural fit for them to acquire in the States because the community is so. I know we do things really differently, but we do a lot of things alike, and we all get on. So, and we like doing business with people. So, it seems really natural for them to have taken that route or that step in terms of the US market because, yeah, Midwich is well known here. I think their only way to expand in the States would be through acquisition and trust and taking on trusted brands. I mean, the farm. How lucky are the Starren? Well, the Starren team are phenomenal anyway. They're, you know, my lovely. I shouldn't stick up for him. Don't vote for Chris Neto.
No, you should not.
But I do consider most of the Starren employees family, really. Absolutely love Bobby, love Bill, Dan, all of them. Chris less so. And the farm, it just seems such a good fit in terms of personalities, because I think one of the hardest things when you're building a business through acquisition, because in a former life I worked for a very large British company that did grow through acquisition, you lose culture, and that's really that will have an impact on sales. And so the way they've gone about it, the control, you know, hats off to the team that. Well, to everybody involved in that, I think it's a very clever acquisition for them. The UK is very different, but we also have to remember that the UK is the size of one of your states. So for Midwich to be successful in the UK and to have a decent market share, which they do, they don't need to go out and do those same acquisitions. You know, but obviously in the States, it's a different approach. It's a different route. And if you think of us as the size of one of your states, maybe then it makes a bit more sense that over 90% of our business and across Europe, in fact, is done through distribution because there isn't the need for the steps. You know, it's just easier and it just keeps things nice and clean. Between manufacturer, you know, in terms of getting from manufacturer to market.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And you know, yes, the UK is you know, it's bigger than Rhode Island, but it's not as big as, you know, some of the other states here. James, same kind of question here. You've got a distributor getting more and more into services, whether that is programming, whether that is on-site labor. You know, what does this mean as the importance does the importance of distribution and distributors themselves rise in the eyes of the end user?
I would say probably what I see the biggest benefit of this is cutting down costs. You're actually simplifying the process, so you can actually cut down costs. So as an end user like myself, I can save money because I don't have to go through 5 other companies to get the same product as going through a company that can provide everything at once. So that cutting down the cost is very key, especially in higher ed, because yes, we want to put the greatest technologies in, but we also want to be financial sound for our university. We're not out there spending money like crazy. And so we have to be wise about it. We have to make sure we're making the right choices for the students and the university. And if I can save money by going with a company that provides distribution and the programming and the other services, that's better than going to 5 other companies that they got their overhead, they got their markups and all that stuff to get the same service.
Alrighty. And just for clarification, the gentleman that Iffat was mentioning was our buddy Chris Neto. We'll talk about the awards here at the end, but she is going up against Mr. Neto for the AVNation AV
Chris.
Professional of the
Vote
Year.
for Chris.
You can vote now. You should vote for Iffat. If you don't, I'll find you. Our next story, Atlona goes green. Really quickly, Atlona is, of course, a sponsor of AVNation. Atlona simplifies AV control with their new PoE keypad. The company's latest is being billed as an alternative to touch panels for basic control needs. Dubbed the ATVKP8E, the IP-based controller targets smaller spaces like standard classrooms where straightforward interface is preferred. The green part of this thing is where this controller has 8 configurable buttons with customizable text and icons and e-paper. You have heard me talk about e-paper before, especially in room notification spaces and also in control. As it has a 2.7-inch display that users can switch between layouts for different control schemes. RGB LEDs indicate system status, and a PoE device means that the power and Ethernet are handled through a single cable. Iffat, I'll start with you on this. How important is low power? How important is power consumption these days when it comes to control, when it comes to, whether it's a university or a corporate space, how important is power control or power consumption?
So interestingly, that was a point I wanted to make about one of the other stories that we're going to discuss today, because in my day job, my role is as part of pre-sales to tender for work. So a bid comes in from usually public sector or corporate client, and we have to demonstrate a lot of things. But in all my years of that bidding for work, a few years ago, the bid would say, what's your policy? Now they're putting a score on how efficient is your kit? What is it actually doing to the environment? And so I think it's critical. It's actually critical to be thinking that way. So it's a forward-thinking move by Atlona. The danger is it a gimmick? In terms of take-up, in terms of functionality, is it actually just doing the same thing as a touch panel? I've not used it, so I can't really say one way or the other. But I hope it's not for the sake of it. So, but if it is,
really quickly, because you said something there. How do you figure out? And if it's math, tell me it's math, and I'll move on because I don't do math. But how do you figure out how efficient a system is? Is it the power consumption going in, and what is that?
So a lot of the manufacturers will have that data. They'll have white papers. They'll actually provide all of that information. They'll do the calculation, and it is maths.
Okay.
And then the other side of me thinks, well, like you said, I don't do maths. I believe it, right? If it's labeled as a white paper and they say it's saving you this much and the output is saving this much, you're going to believe it, unless you've got somebody in your organization who's going to prove it otherwise. So you believe that the products have been tested, and if that is the case, then yeah, that's good. It's a good move.
James is laughing at me as I said I don't do math, so I'll pick on him next. James, how important is power consumption in the corporate space, in classrooms, when it comes to putting up new rooms?
I think power consumption is very important. We always are trying to save wherever we can on utilities, on power, water, any kind of savings we can do is great. Like we know, like HEPMA has the agreement with the SAVE organization. So sustainability is very important in higher ed and in HEPMA and all those organizations. So this is just another way to get at it. And I kind of want to go with something if I have torn on this product because my old job, we did do keypads over touch panels. But one thing I disliked about keypads was you can't update them and manage them remotely. Like if I had to change a button, I had to go physically change the label on the button. But I don't want to run another network cable to my lectern. And this, you have to require PoE, send another cable to it, and you have to update. So I'm a little torn on it. So I kind of agree with Iffat. Is this really just a gimmick to replace a touch panel, but you're doing the same thing anyway? Like if I got to run a line, why am I not just putting a touch panel in? And touch panels are themselves are even coming down in power consumption.
Yeah.
But so I'm a little torn because I like the small form factor of it. I like the e-paper, like you were saying, Tim. But I think the power consumption is great. But then again, if the white paper says is saving power, are we truly understanding that value? Because a lot of our higher ed buildings has a green leaf, and you have to show what you're doing to qualify for those certifications, and they're very big certifications for a university. They can go out and say, hey, look, this building is bronze certified or gold certified. So having that certification is very key, but you got to show it and prove it, not just put it on a white paper. You actually have to prove that you're meeting those requirements.
Yeah, I was a part of way back when I was a tech manager. I was a part of a brand new build. We were shooting for platinum lead. We got silver because of what James just said. Because and some of the AV gear, and this is 15 years ago, right? But some of the AV gear legitimately added to that lead certification. Now, talk to me offline about what drove us from platinum to silver. That's a different story. Willie, ESG is something that we talk about from time to time, environmental sustainability and governance. I know Legrand has a big interest in that. I know a number of other manufacturers do as well. How big of a deal is this in higher ed? How big of a deal is this in corporate America? And how much effort or energy should manufacturers put into that?
Personally, I feel it's a big deal in higher ed. In my role at my previous institution, I actually served several years on the sustainability committee. Numbers were very important. Numbers were very important from a client relationship standpoint. Numbers were very important from a donor relationship standpoint, and certainly from a standpoint of manufacturers. But I also, at a deeper level, at a personal level, wondered how much of it was greenwashing. Because if the numbers look good, everyone feels great about what they're doing. At the end of the day, when I looked at some of the efforts that we were putting forward, such as the decreasing of computer labs on campus and going with thin clients while at the same time building larger server farms, right? So now you have this new closet that goes in that's gobbling up a ton of power that you're working to keep cool and maintain that environment, while at the same time you're saying, hey, we curbed our costs because we've decreased the amount of computers on campus. We're not replacing as much hardware. There's not as many people coming into our computer lab, so the heating and cooling cost has gone down. Occupancy sensors are telling us that there are fewer bodies in this space and that space we're saving there. And there are real dollars being saved, but at the same time, they're being leveraged elsewhere. I go back to a class I took many years ago where the professor was known to carry reams and reams and reams of paper into class and distribute handouts. And some student asked, she said, isn't that bad for the environment, all the paper that we get? Why can't you digitize it? And he says, well, in my way of thinking, downing those trees, processing the paper actually consumes less power than creating an industry that creates semiconductors, that mines for raw and precious minerals underground, that creates plastics to house all of the electronics that are on your desktops now and your mobile devices, on and on and on. I don't know where it balances out because I haven't analyzed all of that data. But I do know in some instances, it's about greenwashing. It makes us feel good. At the end of the day, we truly want to believe that we're doing good. But there are times that the reality tells us that change, evolution of global warming can occur at such a glacial pace that maybe our grandkids' will see the results and we'll never see those results. I'm not saying we shouldn't make an effort, but we have to also be cognizant that there are times where feeling good is more important than seeing factual.
Last story comes to us from our friends at Extron. Extron is shrinking their AV over IP. Extron is a sponsor of AVNation. Extron is now shipping their new NAV encoder, NAV, the NAV E121, at just half the size, quote unquote, of other devices. The encoder has Extron's Pure 3 codec for 4K 60 video and super low latency on 1 gigabit networks. The diminutive, the small dimensions support wider deployment options like under furniture or in racks alongside multiple units. Features include HDMI loop out for monitoring, RS-232 control, of course, and AES-67 audio integration with DSPS. James, first question here. And this is not the first device I've seen that says, hey, we're smaller, we're cooler, right? We're less whatever. Why are AV devices shrinking?
Mainly because people don't like seeing the gear. We're all gearheads here.
Who people? Because there's nothing I like more. There's a rack right over there that I freaking love every time I come in this studio.
And I've gone for the bigger phone, right?
See? So who people?
Architects.
There we go.
But this is the thing is, us gearheads, we like gear. I actually had this conversation not too long ago with a project on my building. Was they put in this giant video wall, and Tim, you got to see it, and the back is all wires, all open. And I'm like, hey, this is great. When is the cover on the back going up? And they're like, oh, there is no back for it. I'm like, hey, I love seeing the blinking lights and all the cables and the gear back there. I'm sure my dean does not want to walk in the building and see that. So we were looking at how we can pretty that up, because people don't like to see that stuff or gearheads. Now, also another reason why gear is getting smaller is a lot more of it is going behind displays.
Okay.
I like it, but I don't like it. My first university I worked for, we didn't put anything behind displays except for cables. And what was nice was if you had to fix or swap out a piece of gear, you went in the condenser, you did it. You didn't have to take down the display.
Yeah.
Here at my new university, we put a lot of gear behind the display. So if you have to work on it, you have to pull the display down to work on it. It makes it a little harder, but then you don't have to have a cadenza and worry about all that space. So I'm a little torn. Like I like not have to go behind displays, but if I do, I want to be nice and small. My only thing is they also mentioned, oh, you can fit this in a rack. It's not rack mountable, meaning I got to put a shelf, meaning I have to strap it down, meaning if I have to take it out.
Or you buy the kit, the ear kit, right?
But it's a half of or 1U?
It's a half rack, yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to take a 24U rack and fill it with tons of half U devices. Like, I don't, to me personally, that doesn't make sense to me. But I understand many manufacturers are doing that because of the things behind displays, putting it under tables, because architects and interior designers want streamline. They don't want big devices in plain view of things. And that's why we're seeing this shrinking.
All right. Willie, same question. Why are we have the incredibly shrinking AV gear?
Man, maybe this should be entitled Shrinking Innovation, but that has a negative connotation to it. I love big, massive rack panels with lots of blinking lights, bells and whistles. But a part of that had in the past meant that you also had to have noisy cooling fans. So I really value the fact that things are smaller, they're lighter. And to me, it's rock solid evidence of innovation. More transistors being able to fit on a silicon wafer so we can shrink the size of that motherboard. Building chips that are far more intelligent, far more capable. Computers designing computers, in other words. So it's very impressive when I see that level of innovation, that you have a small box and it's capable of doing far more than we ever imagined a small form factor device could offer us. So it's a win-win for what it's worth. And it does make concealing that hardware very easy. James, I agree with you. Climbing ladders to pull down a panel to get to something behind it can be frustrating. It can be nightmarish, and you definitely will require a trusted partner, right? Because it tends to be a two-person thing. Something this small, you could almost take a good chunk of bubble gum and stick it on the back of that panel. I'm not saying do that. In fact, hygienically, don't do that. Instead, make certain your devices are secured and
Sounds like it from
strategically
experience
placed.
there, Willie.
Thank you for that visual.
All right, there we go.
There's enough bubble gum underneath James's desk, and it's a brand new building. All right, Iffat, you mentioned that the last story talking about energy led you to this one. So what are you thinking energy wise on this one?
So there were a few things about this story. Firstly, I just wanted to clarify the award-winning bit of this, right? So this particular piece of kit belongs to the family of award-winning.
Family of award-winning. Yes, this is a brand new
Which means
product.
my children can now call themselves AV Professional of the Year when I win. Sorry,
yes,
Chris Netto.
when you win.
When I win, my children will now call themselves part of the award-winning Chaudhrys of AVNation readers. So stop spinning your products when they haven't won an award, right? This product has not won an award. And I'll tell you why I'm not a fan. I don't even need to mention the brand that we've switched to. But you can get a comparable product, which is both. It's a transceiver. It does the encoding and the decoding, right? It comes with the table mount. You don't need to buy it separately. It comes with it. It doesn't need a fan because it's low wattage. It's not going to overheat. So there is nothing that special about this announcement. It actually irritated me a little bit because for all those reasons and many, many, many more. There is a really better product, which is cheaper, comes with more things, is really efficient. You can hide it wherever you like. It comes with a mount to hide it under your table if that's where you want it to go. Sorry to your sponsor. But size does matter. I think you should call this part Size Matters. It does matter.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be a good place to stop. Thank you all so much. Willie Franklin, how do people connect with you, sir?
You can reach me at franklindjservices@gmail.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Mr. James King, how do people connect with you, sir?
First, I want them all to go and vote for Iffat for Professional of the Year.
Hear, hear.
Don't vote for Chris. Vote for Iffat because he deserves it 100%.
You got 2 days after this post, 2 days to vote.
If you want to find me, you can reach me at Anything with HEPMA. I'm involved with HEPMA. You can find me with Steve Green Black Weekly doing Ask the Programmer podcast. I write for the Higher Digital Magazine. Again, if you Google me, you'll find me.
Iffat, how do people connect with you generically, but also most importantly this week at ISE?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Iffat Chaudhry. I'm on X as at IFSI. Podcast is What If, and that's on X at What If AV. And the YouTube links are all on all of my socials. But next week, you will find me in the FIRA. On Tuesday, I will be battling it out with the wonderful Christopher Netto for his first live AV in the AM that we will be recording. So that will be over at the Midwich stand in Hall 3 from 2 p.m. local time on Tuesday. But I'll be based in Hall 4 at the Influencer Hub and also at Avixa Live Exchange. On my LinkedIn, I've posted my sessions, but you'll find me. Kind of hard to miss.
Yeah.
Even in 60,000 or however many attendees
we'll see. I had a conversation with Mr. Mike Blackman, the executive director of ISE, a number of months ago, and he sits down. And he goes, "This is the biggest ISE ever." I'm like, "You don't know that yet, Mike. You don't." And then he qualified it. Well, it's the most vendors we've ever had, which great. All right, that is certainly one mark of biggest ever. It's also the most square meters they've ever had. So certainly they're going into this week. By the time you're listening to this, they're going into this week certainly with a head of steam. We will see how many people show up. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 80,000 is the record to date, and that was 2019. Because 2020, in addition to being right before COVID, was the winter of that nasty storm that hit the UK and caused not quite half of the folks not to be able to show up. So 80,000 is the mark that Mr. Blackman's looking for. We'll see this time next week whether or not he hit it. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on any of the socials. But go by the website, if you would, please, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. We mentioned a couple of them. Number one, James has been on not only Ask the Programmer, but Steve Greenblatt's State of Control. You can check that out. Erin May Moran, who is going with the folks at HETMA to ISE. You can check out her podcast, EdTech, and our fantastic Women in AV podcast with Erica and Jennifer. We've talked about this a couple times. The last 2 days of voting for the AVNation 2023 Reader's Choice Award is the 30th and 31st of January. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday, you're too late. Sorry. So go to the website, go vote for Iffy, and then vote for anybody else you want to. I love you, Chris Netto. I really do. Just not this year. Also, we are also heading to ISE. By the time you listen to this, my happy butt will be in Barcelona. Actually, hopefully having coffee with Iffat. But if you follow along, we'll have videos from the show floor. On Tuesday from 4 to 6 local time, we will be at the HD Base T booth with our friends at Commercial Integrator and the 40 Under 40 alumni. So check that out as well. But go see everything that we do. We'll be doing AVWeek from the show floor of ISE next week. So check that out as well. One last thing, and this is just because I'm an American football fan. Everybody knows I'm an American football fan. By the time you listen to this, we're recording this on Friday, so I'm not going to let Mitchell edit me and make me right. Lions and Chiefs is who's going to the Super Bowl. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh, you don't believe the whole hoax, the script?
I don't believe the conspiracy theory. No, I don't think that the 49ers can do it. I don't think that they've proven it. But I also think that the AFC is going to win regardless of who comes out of it. So that's my prediction. I'm recording this on the 26th of January. Mitchell can either make me look like he usually, anyhow. So there's my prediction. Have fun, y'all. Those of you who are going to ISE, we'll see you in Barcelona. Let's go grab a coffee or something together. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AVWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.